welcome. We are talking about sex and love addiction. Specifically, should you have sex on the first date if you identify as a love addict? So I'm going to wait a little bit for people to get in since I'm teaching this live, just to make sure that I have as many people here who are able to join us this time as possible. Of course, a replay will be available as long as nothing crazy. I tend to get a lot of phone calls around this time of day, and I meant to look up how to make sure that the sound doesn't go out on Instagram. But we are talking about, should a love addict have sex on the first date? This question came up yesterday in my live. That was about a different topic, and I said I would come back to it, but didn't have time. So I'm going to talk about that now. Before I do that, just want y'all to know, for anyone who has any deeper questions that you want support with or that you would like for me to answer for you live in our members club, I'm actually about to go live at 5:30 CST, which is about 45 minutes from now, in our BJ's members club. And so it's our smaller subscription that you can join to come. It has our book club. I post bonus workshops, bonus lessons, all kinds of tools. And like I said, I'll be going live on Zoom in 45 minutes to answer women's questions and go deeper in our topics. It's a more private place, it's a more secure place with in a safe environment versus it being in public here. So that is available for you. You can join by going to blackgirlsheal.org/club and cancel anytime. So we'll love to see y'all there soon. All right. So here's my disclaimer before I say my answer for anyone who just happens to click on this live. This platform, Black Girls Heal, is for women who identify as love addicts, love avoidance, and those who struggle with love deprivation. Meaning, especially when it comes to love addiction, we are the ones that will mistake intimacy and sex and these intense feelings for love. We are prone to mistaking trauma bonds, codependency, obligation, false esteem, false promises as love and commitment and connection. So that's who I'm talking to right now. So for those of us who identify with those types of things, sex on the first date is not a good idea, okay? First of all, we just know biologically, and people try to fight this as a part of working to feel empowered and reclaiming our bodies and reclaiming our sexuality, but we know via science that when it comes to sex and women, that hormones, chemicals are released that bond us to the other person, okay? They bond us emotionally and mentally and make us more susceptible to connection. That is how the body works. And when we try to learn how to detach ourselves from that, we're doing our own sort of damage that I'm not talking about yet or not talking about in this live right now. However, it makes you more susceptible to having fond feelings and connection for the person that you're being intimate with. So if you're a love addict and you are trying to learn how to pace and take your time, the other context to the question that was asked to me yesterday, the person said, should we have sex on the first date or should we try to take it slow? So they're asking me these multiple questions that are telling me that they are being intimate with people that they want to build a lasting relationship with, or they want the potential to build a lasting relationship with. And the problem with love addiction is that we will fall in love with potential. We will fall in love with the fantasy and the idea of who we want someone to be, even beyond sex or before sex. So then when we add sex on top of it, you cannot see what's happening clearly with the person that's in front of you. Let me know if this is making sense, okay? So sex and the bonding agents that happen will block your sense of clarity. You will think, here's what you'll think. If you're someone who, let's say you do sleep with the person, or you know that you're susceptible to it, or that you're kind of on the line of it, you're gonna tell yourself, okay, well, I'm just gonna pay attention. I really want to have sex. Maybe it's been a long time. Maybe you're really attracted to them. Maybe you really embody and feel a lot of truth around women owning their sexuality and owning what they want to do and not, being bound by patriarchy, whatever the reasons are, or a combination of all of them. And so you say, okay, I know that this may happen, so I'm just going to keep in mind all the red flags that I see. But what happens when you are going into codependency, love addiction, trauma bonding type things is the red flags to you start to turn pink, or they start to turn yellow, or they start to turn beige. Or to my point that I was saying, I don't know if it was the last podcast episode or the one yesterday, the live yesterday, you will start to try to negotiate with what's happening in your mind. You'll start to find justifications. So a person is showing you that they are not available for you, and they're showing you that there are all these things going on. And so you think that if, okay, as long as I keep dating other people, then I'll be fine. As long as I don't talk to them as much, I'll be fine. As long as I, keep in mind that they're not available for me, I'll be fine. And that's not how it works. That is not at all how it works. Okay? Let me know what questions or comments or thoughts y'all are having with what I'm saying so far. If it makes sense, if you disagree, if you've had this same experience yourself. I can tell you myself, there have been people that I was very clear that this ain't it. And I knew it wasn't it. And I went into the situation knowing it wasn't it. And, tried to do something that was more casual. And I started to build fond feelings for the person. And I knew, right? And so let me know if this is making sense. And of course I'm going to build fond feelings because that's what this is supposed to do. So my answer to this question, should you have sex as a love addict on the first date, is no. I do not know any other professional who works with people who struggle with codependency, romanticizing red flags, being attached to unavailable people, who will tell you, even if they believe in full ownership and sexuality of their body, I do not know any other professional who will tell you, yeah, go ahead, just be careful, because we know all the components that go into it. We know that when it comes from attachment wounds and attachment styles and attachment disorders and everything else, that you're setting yourself up for decades worth of reflexively attaching to people who are not good for you. Chances are the person that you are sleeping with, if you're rushing into it and you haven't really gotten started in your healing journey, chances are the person that you are sleeping with is someone who is not good for you. If you have not adequately learned how to spot red flags and warning signs, and you're still in this cycle of push-pull relationships, where things start off really well and then they explode or implode, chances are this next person, no matter how pretty and shiny they are on the outside, that you did not pick a securely attached person to connect to. Right? Because there are so many different love stories and variations of people who have been intimate, within the first couple of encounters, and it worked out great for them. And you have to live your journey, and you have to live in your truth, and you have to know yourself. You have to know what you're susceptible and what you're not. You may have strengths and things in relationships that your friends, that are weaknesses for your friends. So you may be able to spot and see something from a mile away that your friends cannot see. And you're like, I would never fall for that. In a million years, I wish somebody would do that for me. And so you are the strong person for your friends in that area. When it comes to intimacy and connection and learning how to go slow and see someone for who they are and not for who you want them to be, if you're just starting this journey, that might be something that you are a little bit more sensitive to. So this isn't about saying that you are weak or not good enough or not smart enough, or this is not a challenge. If anything, it's about encouraging you to fully know how relationships, how love, how connection works for you, so that you can optimize it, so that you can beat the system, so that you can not get caught up in the okie doke and then wonder, why did I get here? And then get caught up in all the shame, because now hindsight, you're like, yeah, I did kind of know, but it was just so hard. Okay, now what are we going to do now in the future? Okay, so let's talk about what to do if or when, if you're someone who wants to kind of go slower in relationships and not rush into this and give the relationship a fighting chance. Let's talk about what you can do if you do break this boundary. If it is a boundary for you, this will not be a boundary for everyone. No matter what I'm saying, everyone has the choice to do and believe what they want, right? That is the beauty that we have, right? So for those of you who are with me, rocking with me, and are like, yeah, this is something that has made me stay deeper into relationships longer than I needed to, and I do want to learn how to kind of go slower, right? And so let's say you do become intimate with someone sooner than you want to. Here's what you do. Well, actually, here's what should already be in place if you're a love addict who is dating. One of the things I had a live maybe a few months ago or earlier this year where I talked about things every love addict needs in their toolkit. So I was talking about having a therapist, having a coach, having accountability, having a set of skills and a plan that you will use to go into relationships. Why? Because you have been operating off of your feelings and off of what you feel like is your gut and your instinct for all these years, and it has been working for you. It has gotten you as far as it's gotten. And again, that is not to say that you are not smart. It's not to say that you've made all bad decisions. But if you're listening, there's something that isn't clicking, right? There's some type of hurdle. There's some type of roadblock, right? Maybe you're better than you used to be, but there's something that's still there. So for you to make change, you got to do something different than what you've done before. And you also need to realize that you can only see things through your own perspectives and your own lens, that we are all biased. We are all biased by our own fears, by our own traumas, by our own triggers. And so having an outside person, whether or not it is our therapist, a coach, an accountability partner, a mentor, securely attached friends, to mirror for us what they see happening, that is going to help us avoid months, years of trauma and drama and distress in our relationships by listening if we are open and receptive to it. So before you even go into dating or starting now, if this is something that you want to work on, you need to have these things as part of your toolkit. You need to have someone to help you work through your trauma that will come up in relationships. It will happen to the best of people, even securely attached people. Being in a relationship is about being sharpened, and that person is going to reflect something of you for you to work on, or they're going to reflect something that's going on with them that may be a trigger for you, and you may not even know where it's coming from, right? And so having a therapist is important. Having accountability is so important. I was in Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, as many of you know, and which is a 12-step group that's just like AA and just like NA, but for those of us who use sex and love as self-medicative drugs to heal our internal wounds. And you get to a place where you're just out of control with it. So you may logically know that this is bad. You may logically know that these relationships are getting worse. You may logically know that it's hard for you to open up and that you want to work on these things. But in spite of yourself and your willpower and all the promises and all the checklists that you make and all the books that you read, you are still powerless to your addictive processes and your addictive thoughts, right? And it's getting worse. So I was in that 12-step program, and like all 12-step programs, they encourage you to get a sponsor and to check in with folks. So they will, it is totally optional if you go to any meeting. This is for adult children of alcoholics and, Codependents Anonymous, all of them. There will be a list, and they will pass it around at every meeting, and you get to choose if you want to write your name and write your phone number. And then you get to, there's usually like a little column that says, are you open for sponsorship? Do you want a sponsor? Are you open to being a sponsor? So you've already gone through the program, and so now you can sponsor somebody else, or just leave those blank. And so you write your name on the list to show that you are open for people to call you when you are feeling very upset and triggered. So the idea is, just like for an alcoholic, if you were about to take a drink, that you call somebody in the program, that you call one of your fellows, or you call your sponsor if you have them, and tell them about what you're about to do. And it is not their job to convince you to not do it, but it is their job to talk with you, see what's going on, and just provide that community. And that usually stops you from doing it, right? It is breaking the cycle, because you're wanting to use your addictive substance to fix or to heal something that's going on. Something has triggered you. Something has happened. And you're looking for comfort. And so usually exchanging that with community and everything is very helpful. So through that program, I was serious about it, because the types of relationships that I had gotten into and the ways that I was breaking my own boundaries of someone who was very, you know, religious at the time, and also someone who was like very like clear about what I wanted, and to watch myself continue to make decisions that were not making me feel good and be in relationships that I knew I deserved better for. I was like, I'm gonna work this program. I'm gonna work it with everything that I have. So I'm gonna go to these meetings. I'm gonna talk. I'm not just gonna sit there and look around because I need to be free of this. So I put my name on the list, and I listened to the other women in the room, and I got the numbers of the women who I liked their stories or I felt like a connection with them. And so when it came time to me wanting to reach out to an ex, or me wanting to drive by somebody's house, who knows? At this point, it's been a minute. So, or look at porn, because porn was one of my things that I was like using more and more and more past what I felt comfortable with. Um, I would reach out and I would call them. And it felt very scary at first because you're like, I know they put their numbers down, but do they really actually want me to call? What are they going to think? Or they think I'm crazy? I don't even know what to say. I'm going to call them, and what am I going to say? Like, are they actually going to really want to talk to me? Like, all these things that have kept me wanting to keep these problems to myself all this time, and all the things that tell me, I'm strong enough and I don't really need to call somebody, like I got this, it's good just to have the numbers, but I don't need it. But again, I was like, I'm calling. And so calling these women, y'all, I can't imagine I can't imagine me ever being able to make breakthroughs without having a community of people around me to say, one, I see you, I hear you, I've been there, you got this, you can do this, to let me just vent when I keep calling, like to let me keep talking about the same ex and the same person every time without them getting sick of it. How many of y'all who struggle with love addiction have had the problem or felt the problem of there's someone who's still in your mind, and your friends, God bless them, they may really love you and they may still want to be there for you, but you can kind of tell, it's not even just in your head, but you can kind of tell that their advice and their love and support has shifted from, it's okay, girl, you got this, to, Sheena, we talked about this. You hear the change in inflection, right? And so that kind of, not necessarily tough love, but like that type of exasperation just feeds your own shame and guilt. So to be in a place that allows you to truly feel and go through what you need to go through was priceless. It was amazing. And so I bring this up because for you to work through an intimacy disorder that at its core is about wounds that you have about feeling not good enough, too much or too little, too broken, feeling neglected and abandoned and rejected. That's at its core, that's what it is. You overcommit to unavailable people, and you have so much left to give in relationships that don't show up for you, and that reinforces that negative core belief. Or, as a love avoidant, you have been hurt enough times in those many ways to where you don't let nobody in, and even when you let folks in, there is still slightly a mask. Love avoidants are great at presentation. We are great at masking. We are great at letting people see what we want them to see for as long as we want them to see it. And when they start to get too close, or when it starts to be a little bit too intimate, then that's when we start to break the chains. Someone says, "Oh my God, yes, my friend started to um, get sick of me." Yeah, right? So before you start to do this, you need to have your accountability partners or your accountability groups or the people that you check in with to help you stay on top of this, and or to provide compassion and support and self-belief when you don't know how to give it to yourself. Otherwise, you can continue to stew in your feelings and your thoughts, right? So where do you find these things? I just mentioned 12-step programs, right? Those of you who know we have a podcast, I have a podcast episode where I talk about my experience in the 12-step program in more detail. I talk about, though, one of the things that comes up, and this is actually one of the things that one of the women at the Reclaiming Me workshop talked about, is going to these meetings. There's not a lot of diversity. There doesn't necessarily have a lot of people who have been in the program for a long time who are necessarily stable. Like, hopefully that is the case. I'm just telling you this just in case you go there and you feel some disheartenment, to just know that this can be a common experience, especially for people of color, right? And so, but that is an option. When I went, it was pre 2016, so pre a lot of the upheaval that has happened in the country since then. Um, and so, me being in a non diverse room was not as triggering as I think it would be for me today. Okay? So, you can do that. Also, I literally have created programs and I talk about it and I pitch them and I tell y'all about them because I've seen the magic that happens when women are in the same room with other women who are holding space for them, where they trade numbers, where they go on trips together, where they like go and visit each other, and they use each other for accountability partners, right? So the recovery school is an option for you as well if this is something that you're working through, especially because you have lifetime access to it. Okay. Um, Number says there needs to be more black girls on this live. I agree. Go ahead and if you're watching live, go ahead and share this with someone who share it on your platform. Once this is done, if you're watching the replay, share it on your stories. Send it to people who you know need it or who um, you think might benefit from hearing from it. But yeah, I think these are really important things for us to talk about because whenever I talk about what I do when I meet new people and they're like, what do you do? Sometimes I kind of struggle with how do I introduce myself? It's easier. A lot of times I still say I'm a therapist. If it's a stranger, I still say I'm a therapist just because it's easier. But if I do say that I'm a love addiction coach, they're like, love addiction, what's that? And then I talk about it. And every single time, if they're not, oh, that's me, then they're like, oh, I need you to talk to my friend. Why? Because these intimacy disorders and the ways that these things show up in our lives is so common that people think that this is normal. That's why we will hear about it in songs. We will see public figures who seem like they have everything completely ruin their lives and like embarrass themselves over relationships and their low sense of self-worth. We will see people sabotage what we think looks like very good things. We will see people who are goddesses and queens fall for scrubs and crumbs, like because we have been sold this lie that this is normal, that this is what we can expect, that this is just part of the growing pains and you figuring this stuff out and practicing self-discovery, and that's not what this is. This isn't normal. This is generational trauma that's been passed down from people who didn't know how to love, who did not know how to love their children. I'm sure they did better than their parents did before, but still there were gaps. And so here we are trying to bridge these gaps and trying to change these patterns and create something new. That is part of the revival and the upheaval and the movement that we are seeing in this country and between interpersonal relationships, because people are waking up and saying, I need more and I deserve more. Okay? Going back to what I was saying though about what you would need to do if you break this boundary, you should already have accountability. If you do not have accountability in a group to help you, get one. Second thing you need is strategy. You need a strategy to help you break these cycles, y'all. You just having the knowledge that you may be repeating your trauma patterns in intimate relationships is not enough because you don't know what to do instead, right? So it looks like someone who says, you know what, I keep dating someone who is just like my dad, or I keep dating someone who is just like my mom. Okay, now what? If I ask someone now what, they're going to say, well, I'm going to just, really focus on my self-love, and I'm really going to focus on, owning my boundaries. Okay, well, what does that look like? Well, I'm just going to love myself, and I'm going to journal, and I'm going to, let people know what I want ahead of time. And so now you're going into first dates with a list of rules and regulations saying, don't do this, don't do that, as if that's going to be a good first date experience for you or the other person. So either people lead with passivity and be very passive, or they lead with like this aggressive defensiveness and protectiveness is coming from a place of healthy protection, but just not knowing how to implement it. So you need to have a strategy of how you are going to date in a healthy way. One of the things that I teach my students and that I have for them is a dating plan. It is inspired by what is in the 12-step programs, But having a dating plan of what this is look like for you to date and build intimacy with people. What does a timeline look like? What is it that you want to do? How close do you want to get to someone? At what level? What does it look like? What is it that you need to feel intimate with someone? What does intimacy look like for you? What does it mean for you to agree to be in an exclusive relationship with someone? What does it mean when you're casually dating versus being in a relationship? What do your boundaries look like when you are in an intimate partnership? Because something that I tell y'all all the time, you have not won when you get into an intimate relationship. You have not beat the system and beat the game. You may have met, God willing, you have met the person who is your soulmate, your best friend, and your life partner, right? That you have not chosen to be in a long-term committed relationship with someone who is not good for you, um, and that you're settling for. Let's say, best case scenario, you have connected to your person. I love that for you. And your insecurities and your thoughts will still be there because your relationship with yourself, you bring that everywhere you go, and your ability to learn how to receive, to learn how to deal with triggers, to learn how to work through the results of prior abandonment and rejection issues that may come up in your relationship now that you are living with someone full time and you're sharing money with them, you're sharing your most intimate thoughts with them, you're going through bad days together, right? Your work does not end once you are in an intimate relationship. If anything, it starts. It really starts. So looking at a dating plan, going back to what I was saying, having a strategy for how do I operate in my most intimate relationships is very important, right? So you need to have accountability. You need to have strategy. You need, which is your own set of rules and boundaries. Those of us in either way, both love addicts and love avoidants, go off of their feelings when it comes to building intimate partnerships. Love addicts go off of this feels good, so I'm just going to let myself be in the moment and let myself just move closer to people, and just, what happens, happens. My love avoidant, you go off your feelings, which is based in fear and restriction and need to control. And so, where the love addict needs to learn how to bring that back and learn how to get some of her source of supply for validation and affirmation more on the inside and security more on the inside, the love avoidant needs to learn how to move forward and to not test and hurt and push away people who are healthy for her, right? Both have their set of skills that they need to develop, right? And a lot of times those things overlap. So you'll be in one relationship and you will be more susceptible, and you may go into more of a passive approach, and then when you're triggered a different way, you'll become more avoidant. So it's you learning how to do both. Okay? So I see that there are some comments. Let me pause. For those of you who are just joining me, hello, hello. I'm doing a live for our members club in 20 minutes on Zoom. So if there's anything that I've shared here that you want to ask about, I'm about to take some questions now. But if there's anything that you want to ask about that you want to be in a more private container, for me to talk with you face to face about, or you can keep your camera off. You can join by going to our members club. You can go to blackgirlsheal.org/club. I'll be there for up to an hour, or as long as I have questions. If no one has any questions, then we'll end early. And if I'm full of questions, then we'll be there for that full hour, because then I have my recovery school Q&A group call after that. But blackgirlsheal.org/club, and you can cancel anytime if you find that you want to do so. But why would you? Because we have a book club, we have bonus workshops, we have all kinds of goodies inside of there. So I think it's a great place to be. Let me scroll up. Songbird says, because growing up in our community, you hide things. Keep going, sister. It should be more people on this live, on this line. I think that's what you're saying. And more women should give a hug to sisters who need it. It changes, life changes. You never know if your turn is coming. Yeah. And please stop thinking people do not have time, that they are mad, that they are happy for you. So yeah, give love to people who are around you, and show up for people and be available for people. Okay, so any questions or thoughts or comments about what I've shared. Today I've talked about, should a love addict have sex on the first date? Oh, let me finish this before I keep going. So you have accountability, you have your strategy. Let's say you break your own personal values, and now like you're kind of dealing with like some back and forth about it. Accountability, you need to tell your friends, you need to tell your accountability group, you need to tell your coach or your mentor. Whenever you do a check-in with them, this is not, let me be clear, this is not like a confession of your sins. One of the things that I would see in program a lot that it just really irked me, though, I mean, the longer I was in it, at first I didn't really like catch it, but the longer I was in it, the more it like really like bothered me, is that people would use the 12-step program. They can do whatever they want, but they would use the program as like this, I don't know the right word, not remittance, that might be the right word, but like again, this repentance where they would come in and like talk about all this stuff that they did and like be in like this like deep shame. But the shame wasn't like this cleansing, it was more like this self-punishment. Like it was almost like their sense of self-worth was so low, and them coming to talk about how bad and horrible they were, instead of it being a place for them to receive. Let me know if y'all can still hear me on Instagram. Instead of this being a place where they could receive love and affirmation for people, they were coming just to like talk about how disgusting they were or like how shameful they were. And then they would use the tools of the program, which would talk about no contact, so some of the things that I teach about, right? And no contact and taking a break from relationships. Then they would say, okay, I'm going to go a year without having any relationships. And so on one hand, you know, most sex and love addict programs, sex and love addiction programs tell you to have a year of abstinence, a year of no intimate relationships with whatever gender you are attracted to. And that means even friendships, right? Because you can absolutely romanticize kindness from folks that you are attracted to if you're all the same sexual orientation. So that is their philosophy. So you have people who will make these mistakes and then feel like they need to go on punishment for a year plus. And I'm like, you were just eating up years of your life. And at some point, you have to learn how to live in balance. You have to learn how to live in this grayscale of how you are human. And humans make mistakes. And you are still worthy of love. And you are still your own. And you still belong to you. And you're still deserving, right? Like there has, at some place, we have to get out of this black and white, all or nothing thinking, right? And so, talking to your accountability partner, your coach, your mentor, whoever, is not for you to go and like have your head down and do it in shame, but just for information. Hey, so I'm talking to this new person, I'm dating them, we've already slept together. So just so you know, I might be a little bit more sensitive when it comes to them. And you know, if you're connected to people who are really loving, supportive, and accountable towards you, and a good source of supply, they are not going to be judging you. They're going to be like, girl, it's okay. Or they're going to be like, you know, it happens. So now what do you want to do when it comes to boundaries? Now, because you also have your strategy of how you connect to people, how you talk to yourself, how you show up for yourself, the places that you get intimacy and support outside of intimate romantic relationships as well. Now you can also go back to that and say, okay, where do I need to go in my green circles, which is one of the exercises that I have my students do as well. Where do I need to go to affirm and love myself so that I'm not susceptible to starting to slowly eke and slowly start to go back into my old ways? Because it's never overnight. You know, they talk about relapse starts way before you take the first drink. Relapse starts with a thought. It starts with a fantasy. It starts with ruminating. It starts way before you ever take the first drink, is what they say for AA. So for you, whether or not your addiction is pornography, an ex or a situationship you can't let go of, using one night stands and hookups to try to self-medicate something inside of you, a shopping addiction, an overworking addiction, whatever it may be, whatever you may be using to distract yourself, that starts way before you even engage with the item. Those things are just symptoms of a deeper issue that you have. So when it comes to love addicts and sex, love addicts who want connection and want intimacy, the easiest way to get someone to hold you and to look at you and to ravish you is sex. And a lot of times, love addicts will confuse that act with true intimacy. And if anything, we may start to use it as repair mechanisms for a relationship that is broken, right? We can't fight when we're having sex. Yes, you can, first of all. And you absolutely can be in a relationship where the person uses you for sex, and then at the end, you feel that you're not actually connected to them. You feel that it was just an act, and you feel used at the end of it. You feel ashamed at the end of it. You feel dirty at the end of it, even if this is someone that you've been in a long term relationship with. And unfortunately, some of you listening to this have had that experience, right? So, sex is not intimacy, it's a sign of intimacy, and it's intimacy that should be earned. It's intimacy that should be earned when someone is already showing up for you, protecting you, caring about you as a person, right? Being consistent with that. There are a lot of people who can do all that stuff and play the game and put on a show and wait out your 3 month rule or wait out whatever just to get you there, right? And so you have to pay attention to all of the signs, right? You have to pay attention to every single way that they are showing up for you, and also make sure that they are not the only person or place or situation that you have as a source for your own intimate connection and your source of affirmation and validation. Okay? I've said a lot. Any thoughts or questions about what I've shared before I end for tonight? Again, I'm about to go live on Zoom for our members club, and go more deeper into these questions. So if there's anything that you're like, girl, I need this, I really need to talk about this, and you want to do that in a secure place, we can do that on Zoom in the next 10 minutes. And like I said, I will be there for as long as there are people there with questions. If there aren't any questions, then I will end the live early, but I plan to be there for an hour. You can join by going to blackgirlsheal.org/club. If you are subscribed already to the club on Instagram or on YouTube, you should have a post in stories on Instagram that has the Zoom link, and then on YouTube in the members section that has the Zoom link there as well. But the club is blackgirlsheal.org/club, brings you to our main membership area. All right. I hope that this is helpful. If you're watching the replay, again, share this with someone who you think needs it. If you're watching the replay, comment below and tell me what you are thinking. Or tell me how you, what your response for this was, and what landed for you. If you want to share this on your stories, then let me take a picture, screenshot that, share it, and I hope whoever is watching this, I hope that you found this supportive and helpful. Again, I am not one for slut shaming at all. I actually believe that women can do whatever they want to do with their bodies and that it is yours to own. However, for all the reasons that I already said, that I'm not going to spend another 40 minutes recounting, you have to be very clear on why you're doing this, what you're trying to intend to it, and what the reality of it is. Biologically, emotionally, the connection to your own patterns as a love addict, if you identify as a love addict. If you do not identify as a love addict, a lot of what I've said today may not apply to you, okay? What is a good time then to move to that step, sleeping together? So this is one of the things that I really push my students to do when they are creating their dating plan, to figure out what their time limit is. That is not something that I feel comfortable telling you what to do here on this live. Because then, if anybody was rocking with me until now, no matter what I said, there would be a problem no matter what I said. So, here's what I'll say. If you want help with learning how to do the dating plan, I'm trying just to focus on the live part, and y'all joining me in the next 20 minutes. But if you want access to my mini dating course on how to pace out datings, it's Dating 101 for Love Addicts, is on our website. It talks about how to pick people who are available for you and how not to. It talks about working through past ex relationships that are keeping you stuck. It talks about how to pace your relationships. It has the full dating plan, questions of what to ask people on first dates and dates beyond that actually help you get to know who the person is. There are lessons on how to figure out which one of your trauma patterns that you are constantly repeating over and over again. Like the dating program is chock full of stuff. And you get access to it if you're a part of the recovery school program. You get to choose that as a bonus course, or you can just get it on your own. So if you want more support with that and you're not able to come to the live Q&A right now to talk more about it, then you can get that and get full lifetime access to that by going to blackgirlsheal.org/dating. You can read all about it and get started immediately. So that's what I will give to you for that. Okay. All right, you're so beautiful. Y'all be gassing me up, girl. When I learn how to do lashes, I'm just gonna be up in here just like this the whole time. Y'all gonna be sick of me. Y'all gonna be this girl. She thinks she all that and do and does. All right. I love you all. I will see y'all later, and y'all have a good night. Bye. Bye, YouTube. See y'all later.